Good morning. So this is a review for your Chapter 21 test, which will be tomorrow. So first thing I'd like you to do is turn to page 127 in the workbook where you'll find the study guide, and I'll give you a minute to open that up. Okay, so we'll start at the top. So as usual, you may use a one-page formula sheet, 8.5 by 11, both sides. Had a question the other day whether you can type it. You certainly can do that. You also may use your conversion charts from the workbook, pages 12 through 16, and also a calculator. As far as terminology, as we discussed, you will be asked to write out definitions for the terms that we defined, and if you need to go back and get some of those definitions, many are in Chapter 21, but some of the more basic ones will be back in Section 1 of Chapter 14. Make sure you're very familiar with units for all of the terms we discussed: frequency, wavelength, amplitude, speed, wave period. And there was a page at the beginning of this section in the workbook, page 107, which provided you the opportunity for tracking the definitions as we went through the chapter. All right, section 21.3 started discussing the speed of a single wave moving in a string. So you should be able to calculate wave speed for that type of situation, and also use that same equation to solve for other unknowns that are in the equation. For instance, tension in the string and mass and length. The next section started talking about periodic waves, which is, instead of a single wave, was repeated waves. And so you should be able to solve periodic wave motion problems. And additionally, we talked about the relationship between frequency and wave period. So you should be able to calculate wave period if given frequency, and calculate frequency if given wave period. This is actually section 21.6. Your slide might say 21.5. This is section 21.6, and called superposition, but we typically referred to this concept as interference between multiple waves. So we discussed the superposition principles. We talked about constructive and destructive interference. We practiced sketching the result of the constructive and destructive interference in the worksheets on pages 110 through 113 in the workbook, and you will be asked to do this type of sketching on the test. And you remember in several of the worksheets you were asked to draw transverse waves, and you could be given either amplitude, you will be given amplitude and either wavelength or wave period, which would be the horizontal axis, and you'll be asked to draw 3 full cycles, and additionally labeling the horizontal and vertical axes. And then finally, at the end of the chapter, sections 21.7 and 21.8 were a discussion of standing waves. We developed a frequency equation for standing waves, and we use that to calculate frequency, but we also use that to calculate other unknowns within the equation. We also made predictions of what would happen in both the standing waves demonstration we did in class and also in the lab. Predictions in terms of Specifically, we were talking about if you changed the number of loops in a standing wave, what kind of tension in the string would be required to do that. Only section 3 has so far had the standing waves lab, and the other 2 sections will have that lab later this morning, so that you get that lab before the test. Overtones and harmonics. So you will be asked to calculate the values of overtones and harmonics, and make sure that you have that table of n values for both the overtones and harmonics on your formula sheet. As before, there will also be some knowledge questions on this test. 6 multiple choice questions, various topics. You should know the proper units for frequency, wavelength, amplitude, speed, and wave period. You also should be familiar with how to determine the effect of changing variables in equations. We did that worksheet from the workbook the other day in class. That's on page 126 in the workbook, so you should be able to refer back to that to refamiliarize yourself with that. And also the knowledge questions might ask you to be familiar with definitions as well. To prepare for the test, you would want to make sure that you review the 2 practice worksheets that were in the workbook, worksheets 1 and 3, and also throughout the chapter there were some assigned end of chapter practice problems, and also your notes. Later this period, once I'm done talking, you'll get back your graded worksheet number 2. If you have questions about comments that are on that worksheet, you can see me in room 15. I'll be hanging out there the rest of the morning. You can find me later today in room 15 or the faculty room, and also I'll show up for the test early in case anybody has questions before the test. All right, that is it.